I was actually working on my P2 at Piero Drogo's workshop in Modena when the P4s were built, and it was all hush-hush behind a curtain in the workshop. No one was allowed to go in there, but as I was sort of working at Drogo's, and Drogo's the chap who really designed the body on it, you know, I knew found quite a lot about them. But having got it back here and converting it back to its original form as it ran at Daytona and latterly at Brands Hatch when Jackie Stewart drove it, it's interesting to see what Ferrari did to it when they converted it into a Can-Am car. The last race it did as a prototype for the World Championship, the Constructors' Championship, was when Jackie Stewart and Chris Amon drove the car at Brands and finished second behind the Chaparral. I was driving the Maranello Concessionaire's P3, and my LM was being driven by Pedro Rodriguez and Roy Pierpoint. And so I was pretty close to the action at that time. And then after that, subsequently, the car was turned into a Can-Am car, and it did the Can-Am series with Amon and Jonathan Williams. Then it was sold to David McKay in Australia. Jackie drove it again, I think, in Australia in the 12 Hours at Surfers Paradise, and once or twice for David McKay. And then Paul Hawkins bought it, and I was quite friendly with Paul. We used to share the garage at Fortisgreen, and I took his engine down to the factory and had it rebuilt, one of the engines that was with this car. And it was never collected until after he was killed. But yeah, Paul ran it in the South African races. Then I bought it from Paul's estate, and I sold it to Al Walker. They raced it in South Africa. And then I got it back from Al Walker and sold it to Walter Medlin, and in Florida. And at one stage, Walter contacted me and said, would I come over to the States and convert it into a prototype? And I said, well, really, it would be better if you sent the car over to Europe. He didn't want to do that, and so it never happened. But subsequently, 40 years later, today, we're doing it here.
Can you go around and just explain some of the things that we've been doing? And there's been no time demand because we want everything perfect. You know, even if it takes longer just to keep another original bit of metal,
yes,
that's what we're doing.
Yes, well, of course, we've tried to keep as much of the original material as possible. I mean, we're just in the fuel tank situation at the moment and having new tanks made which comply to the new regulations. And when this car was built, it was the early days of bag tanks, and they didn't have foam in them, and they had to support the tanks in the car, and they were held up with this sill with pins through little clips on the tank that had to be pushed up from underneath. Now we're having tanks which fit in the same area, but they're filled with foam, and they're joined with tubes across the chassis from one side to the other, and they're self-supporting. But we have to have an inspection hole in the front, in the top here, to get the foam in and to connect everything up.
But when you look at the inside of the car, I mean, there's like basically 40 years old of original dust and,
absolutely,
and grease.
Yes.
I mean, it's a time machine, really.
It is, certainly. We've added the seat belt mountings at the shoulders and seat
so it's
straps.
Safe to race today.
Yes, because we need this for the regulations. And also, you couldn't run the car with the original tanks in it. It has to have the new spec tanks. We had to leave the engine and gearbox in while we made the tail so that we could get the airboxes
perfect
to match with the tail. And we've had to make there was no windscreen surround, no windscreen wipers, no screen washers, nothing like that, you know, that you have to have in a prototype rather than a Can-Am car. There's got the old Serpente oil cooler, which is a classic original oil cooler that was Mauro Forghieri's favorite thing, with an Archimedes threads in each tube to slow the oil down as it goes through the cooler. we're having new Marshall head and fog lights. We've got the E-Knot big fuel caps, but inside them we've got ordinary smaller quick opening fillers, because for the regulations, having fuel caps at the front of the tanks like this, and they had on the GT40, was very dangerous. If they didn't shut the filler cap, you'd brake from Ulsan and the fuel would come gushing up, and the sparks on the exhaust would catch fire, and the car would go off the road in a ball of fire. So we are going to perpetuate that, but just for old time's sake, we're going to have the E-Knot caps for show, with the filler cap in the middle and the flap will lift up. But yes, it's a pretty car.
It's an exciting project. We started just under a year ago. Was it around October last year?
October last year we started on the project, and we went to town on the front and rear subframes and all the hardware for the spare wheel carriers and that sort of thing, and doing what was necessary to have a body fitted on it. And we used to have a dummy run with the body off my P4 and offer it up so that everything settled down and we knew where we had to go. And while the buck was being made in wood from my body, which was 0860, which was one of the original P4s, and so that no mistakes or no diversion from the original spec we didn't want any accumulative error sort of copying things. So it was sectioned off right the way through the car. And that took 3 months. And and then, you know, the bodywork's progressed. It's, you know, it's not a quick job.
No, but it's a job worth doing, because the price of...
Yes. I mean, I had a spare P4 body and I had fiberglass body panels, you know, but we didn't really want to incorporate those.
No, we wanted...
It's all right if you're putting them on a car to race, if you're in a sort of demolition derby, you know, and you get people running into you, but the problem is, with a beautiful aluminium body like this, you know, we don't want anybody running into it.
Yeah, but we also used the correct gauge.
Yes, yes, we did. One of the problems with these P4s, when you come to lift the nose and tail off, you know, you tend to pick it up by this, and it tends to bend, so, and it'll crack the paint. So we're trying to obviate that problem by stiffening it up there.
But it's certainly taken great shape.
Yes, it's looking good.